Hey there, this is Irene Nash with the Lab Tested Real Estate. Hey, today I'm going to show you a quick staging example that shows you what you can do when you are invited to go look at a listing to assess it and evaluate it for sale. These are the kinds of things that you really need to know in order to price a home correctly, because if you don't know that you can make these transformations, you can't actually price the house correctly. And it is what does the best possible job for your sellers, because they're counting on you to get as much value out of the house as possible. The great news is that this also really works so well for you as a listing agent. This is learning how to do this is what turned me basically from a buyer's agent to mostly a listing agent, and I wish I'd learned how to do it a lot earlier. So it's not something that you get an eye for overnight, but it is something you can definitely get an eye for, really get good at, and it will help you get listings and get known as a listing agent. And it is something that no matter what, it does the best job for your sellers. So honestly, it's something that we should do no matter what, right? Okay, so I'm going to show you, let's start with this master bedroom example for a house in the Seattle area. So this is what we saw when we first walked in here. These people had lived here for 30 years, and it was, a house had been built in the 80s, and it felt, kind of dated. And there is a lot of value here, but the problem is that it's not actually very obvious, because there is a ton of stuff and there's some other things going on that I will analyze here. And the goal is to figure out how you can take something that looks like this, which is very typical for when you walk into a listing that hasn't been prepped, and turn it, when you put it on the market, into something like this, because this holds a ton of value. Now you don't have to hunt to see what it is that you're buying if you're the buyer. Clearly, this holds space, light, functionality, potential, enough room to have different furniture in there if you want, and nice windows and good lighting. It feels a million times better than this does. So let's look at what we did here to change things. So first of all, one of the things that we want to look at are the things that make this house look dated, because that is a huge issue. Well, dated and cluttered. So let's look at clutter. We've got too much stuff in here, right? And this is one of the great things actually about this, being a listing agent who helps sellers like this to begin with, because even if someone is dealing with low funds, they can always take stuff out. I mean, the stuff is going to go anyway, right? They're moving, so they can just, removing stuff, anyone can basically do that. Please pay close attention to this stuff here, because it's in the foreground. And what you'll notice is that anything that's in the foreground like this, it takes up a big portion of the picture space. It also confronts you when you actually walk into the house, but always be careful of stuff that when you first walk in the room, it's like, whoa, what is blocking my view? And in this case, if you actually look at this, look at the space here that is covered by, not a big little table and this little thing here and this chair. It's actually about as big as this king-size bed. It's almost the same amount of real estate in the photo is being taken up by these two things, because it's in the foreground. So stuff that's in the foreground, really keep an eye out for. So then you've also got this. Bear with me. I'm figuring out how to use this thing. I just got today. You've got this clutter here, and you've got this that probably doesn't need to be there. And then you've got these little pictures that are not the right size for this area. And then you've got this light, which is totally not in a good space. You've got this little thing here, and you've got this over here. So you've got, really, when you start breaking it down, look at all these arrows. You have so much stuff that is contributing to make this room feeling cluttered and smaller. So then I just want to point out a few things too that make this look more dated. Let's look at this wall color. Now, this is a robin's egg blue. It was really popular in the 80s. It is not now. It just says hello 80s, right? It's not an ideal color for selling now. And then this also, in my opinion, makes it look dated. And you actually have some pretty nice window blinds right here. They don't look like much right there, but they are higher end window blinds and they work just fine. So you really don't need this thing over here. And then also this, in addition to adding to clutter, this is a very old style light. This is kind of an old style drawer. This is kind of an old style chair. This color, all of this stuff is kind of old style. This isn't, again, it's robin's egg blue. It's an oil, that color doesn't help with anything. And this, because it's actually like a hunter green, that's also a dated color. So that's not helping either. And then one more thing when you're looking at this room, really, this is not the ideal bed position. Look at the way it is. Most people really don't want to sleep with their head to a window. And also you can't really tell, but this room is kind of long. So we looked at it and thought, well, actually, really the bed should probably be like in that orientation. And when you first talk to people about this stuff, if they've lived in the house for 30 years, I totally understand it may be like, what? But when you put it in the context of, hey, you've got one shot to sell this house. This is maybe you've had it for 2 years. Maybe you've had it for 25 years, like, these people had. This is your shot. You've got one shot to put on the market. So yeah, it's a bit of a pain maybe to think of moving things around or repainting a wall, but this is your one chance at showtime. And really, when you put it into that kind of context and help them understand how much the value of their house might become more evident, and how much they might be hiding value portions of their house if they don't do it, people really understand, because that translates directly into price. It translates into selling price. And really, you're talking about a very short-term investment in terms of time, and often not that much investment even in terms of money either. Okay, so it is really important to help people understand this, because that way, hey, if they decide not to do it, at least they're making an informed decision. And we also do everything that we can to help our clients do that. So then let's look now that we've analyzed what needed to be changed, let's look at the final product. Okay, so we did move the bed around. So the orientation of the bed changed. And you maybe didn't notice in this other picture, it had this big, huge thing here, this big wooden thing at the end of the bed. And we took that off because it would have made the room feel quite a bit smaller to have that on the end. And then now you've got these little pictures that are correctly sized, and they have a little bit of a color spot. This blue wall is gone, and notice how much bigger the room looks and how nicer it looks with that gone. Got a little decor piece here. We've got this here. We've got these two little matching pictures here. We've got some very small lights that don't look, they are not really that yellow in real life. And they have LED bulbs. We always keep light night lamps on, bedside lights on, and LED bulbs take almost no energy, but you don't want to have these off when you have a listing. You just get something small and inexpensive so you can keep it on all the time. We rented this thing, which isn't super modern looking, but it's a better color than what was there. And then this is our bedspread and beds and pillows, which we almost always use. Because actually, if you look back at the other one, notice how that's also kind of a dated color. It's like a pale blue that isn't very modern at all. Okay. So, and yes, clearly that there's some professional photography happening in this, or professional grade photography happening in this picture as well. But if we had just gotten a professional photographer into this house, into this room, and said, hey, take a picture, or even cleared off a few things, you can imagine it would never have looked as good as after we did, basically everything that we did in this picture. All right. So, just one thing to note that I think is really important is that this, in my opinion, this isn't optional, and it's not just for high-end listings. This house, for where it wasn't necessarily a high-end house. It did sell, this one did sell for over $1 million, but that was because of the location. We do this for houses, the lowest end houses that we sell, starter homes, fixer homes. We do this for those homes as well, because the whole point is when someone hires you as a listing agent, anyone can throw a house on the MLS, and anyone can just, throw a few flyers in a box. Really what they're hiring us for is our expertise in taking and extracting the value of the house. That if we're not doing that with proper preparation as much as we can, and counseling the seller so that they understand what choices they're making if they decide to not do something, and helping them to the extent that we can, and making things simple and not overwhelming so that they follow through with these steps with our assistance. And then professional grade photography, even if you don't have access to a professional photographer. I'm going to have another video on what you can do to make your pictures look as good as possible. And then secondly, don't think just because if we do hire a stager, because we don't, it's not guaranteed that you're going to get good staging. So we actually need to know the result that we're going for, because there are some really, really awesome stagers out there, but there are other people who are well-meaning, but they overstage, or they essentially they don't add to the value of the house, unfortunately, with staging. So as the listing agent, we still need to know what we're going for. It's not enough to just hand it off to an expert, because I've seen it happen, and sometimes your expert isn't actually going to do the job that needs to be done. And that is what we're getting hired for, not to, it's great to delegate if you delegate to the right person, but we still are responsible for the end result. Okay? So hopefully this will help. It's something that you develop an eye for over time. I'll have other staging videos as we go forward here. So be sure to download your free home listing prep and staging checklist. It's in the remarks below. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please click the subscribe button on YouTube. And if you hit the bell notification, you'll be notified when I post future videos. This is Irene Nash with Lab Tested Real Estate saying thanks for watching.